Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest, I may butcher your name. I apologize, Coach Planz. I hope I said that right.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
I reached out to Coach. He was gracious enough to come on, and I appreciate him. Coach, for anybody that may not know who you are, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Ron Planz. I'm currently the head football coach up at Lake Zurich High School in Lake Zurich, Illinois. Finished my first season in 2019. Obviously, we haven't had a 2020 season yet, or won't, I guess, as we're slated to kick off in 2021 spring. Fingers crossed that we get to do that. Yeah. You know, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it sounds like we will, and then it sounds like we won't, and who knows what's going to happen.
Right. It depends on the week, whether there's excitement for it and positivity, or you're just down in the drudges, not thinking it's going to happen. I think a great quote that I've been kind of living by through all this is it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So we've kind of taken that approach with everything we're doing from a football standpoint, coaches meetings, player stuff. We got some contact days in that we got to do during October with weight training, all those kinds of things. That's kind of the mindset we have. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared.
Right. Like we're prepared to have it, but we got to get through basketball first. That's the first step is what are they going to do with basketball? And that's the crazy thing right now in Illinois. It's a dumpster fire, to be nice about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people were surprised when they made the announcement, or they had the two sides, the IHSA saying one thing and the governor's office saying the other, that basketball didn't get a chance to get started. I think we all kind of felt like, hey, basketball will get a chance to go. That's going to kind of springboard all the other sports. And we'll kind of transition to spring. It's going to be a weird year, but we'll do it. But now, as we're seeing too, there's a huge outbreak happening too. Illinois at the time when they made the announcement, no basketball, everybody's like, looking around, what do you mean no basketball? We're fine. We're one of the best states out there. There were a lot of rallies to get football started up before it got too cold. But now we're in the middle of an outbreak again. So again, those are the things you can't control. So you just prepare the best you can for whatever opportunity comes.
Yep, that's all we can do, and we just got to get through it, I guess. We don't have a playbook for it. And as coaches, the kids look at us like, what are we supposed to do? Well, we don't know. We don't have a playbook. We don't have a plan. We're prepared for the next pandemic, I guess, later on down in life, maybe we're prepared.
No doubt.
So I'm always curious how people got into coaching, because we all have our own way, our own path. So how in the world did you get into this stressful, rewarding profession of coaching football?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my parents were really heavily involved in the local youth sports league. I grew up in Bensonville, Illinois, which is right next to O'Hare. And the youth league was BBAA, Bensonville Boys Athletic Association. And they were responsible for baseball, soccer, football, basketball, all the youth sports all ran through that organization. And my parents were pretty involved in that. My dad had been coaching football in that association long before I was even born. And he just loved it and was always a part of his life. So as growing up, and he would have the coaches over. He was the guy that back in the late 70s, early 80s, he bought one of those big cameras, the VHS cameras, right when they came out, so he could film practices and they could film their games and they could watch stuff. Doing things that people weren't doing at that level of football at that time. Now everybody's got Huddle. You can get Huddle highlights of your third grade football team going right now. But back then they didn't do that. And so he would always have coaches over. They'd be watching film, talking about stuff. I would be the gopher, right? I'd bring the beer, I'd bring the pizza, I'd bring whatever the coaches needed to watch their film and do their stuff. And I always really loved football. I really got into it. I wasn't thinking necessarily about coaching when I got into college. I was going to actually go into sports management, a lot of people have gone that route, and so this was the mid '90s when I started college, and I thought really what I was going to do is I was going to get into strength and conditioning training. Right now, everybody does it. Everybody's a guru of this, a guru of that. But back then, there wasn't anybody doing that stuff. And I actually had the idea, late '90s, I was going to start a company that would train people for the NFL Combine. Right? Had I done that, I'd probably be a millionaire right now. I'd probably be, one of those guys with his own ESPN show training people because nobody was doing that stuff. But I love that. I love that kind of preparation, and that coaching part I was really into. Played college football, went to Carthage College, played college football. Heading into my senior year, it dawns on you that you're not going to the NFL. You're not going to play anymore. Football's about to end in your life. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do without football. I don't know how I can, carry on without football. And I talked with my defensive coordinator at the time, John Corsi, and he said I should think about coaching college, because I never really, I didn't have a plan. I didn't want to be a high school teacher. My dad begged me to do it, get into history, get into something like that, get your teaching license. I have some family that does it, and it's good if you get in early and you put in your time, and you can retire nice, and there's a nice pension. There's all those things that people get out of it. But I didn't want to do that. Probably because my dad told me to do it, but I didn't want to do that. But my college coach said, you should think about college football. You have a good football mind. You enjoy it. You watch as much film as we do. You should do that. And I had no idea. I didn't know how to do it. Didn't know how to get into it. Didn't even know how it existed. So he said, well, you got to try and find a graduate assistantship and do all that. So I sent out, and I have most of the rejection letters, but I sent out about 130 actual letters across the country after my senior year finished, just saying, hey, I'm looking for a place to coach, a GA, a volunteer, and anything. Tons of rejection letters. I got some really cool signatures, Bobby Bowden. I got, I've got all kinds of, really just cool thanks but no thanks letters, and I kept them. I have actually on a binder that I've kept. But there were a couple of yeses, and I ended up getting a graduate assistantship at the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, and moving up there, and that was exciting. I lived in the basement of the head coach's house. I made less money than rent cost, and I had to pay for my own school. Took out a ton of loans to do it, but I had the absolute time of my life coaching football. Got a chance to do that. In the middle of my first year there, we had a really good season. In the winter, the head coach had some experience coaching over in Europe, so he suggested I do that, and I had zero interest whatsoever in going over and coaching in Europe. I wanted to stay there. I wanted to finish my degree. I wanted to become a full-time coach as soon as possible. But without getting into that long story, I ended up over in Vienna, Austria, coaching football that spring. And that was an awesome experience. So there I am. I'm 22 years old. I turned 23 over there. And I'm coaching football. I'm basically responsible for everything at that young of age. I'm coaching guys that are 35 years old. The club system over there works similar to soccer on kind of a tiered scale, but it's the only paid players are the Americans that they bring over. Everybody else pays to play, but it's a kind of a quasi semi-professional type program. But it was great. I got housing, I got food, I got pay, and I got to live in Austria for 6 months. So that was awesome. Come back to the States in the summer. At the end of the summer, get right back into my GA job, and I was going to go back for a second season over in Austria, but the D coordinator at the time at Eau Claire became the head coach at a college somewhere else, and the head coach at Eau Claire approached me and said, "Hey, if you can hustle and finish your degree." Now, mind you, I'm a semester behind because I went overseas. He said, "I think I can hire you full time." So I didn't go back to Austria. I busted, finished up my degree, got hired full time. So my third year coaching, I was full time at Eau Claire. Was there for a year, then got offered an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator at a school in Indiana called Manchester College. So I went and took that job, and we kind of built that thing up. They hadn't won a game in I hadn't had a winning season in a long time, and we spent 5 years there. My fifth year there, we went 5-5, first non-losing season in a long time. And then I ended up going to Minnesota State University, where the head coach that was the head coach at Eau Claire was now the head coach at Minnesota State, and he brought me up there. Spent 5 years there, got to coach some tremendous football players. Adam Thielen, who plays for the Vikings, was on that team when I was up there. And then the Chris Reed, he's a lineman for the Panthers. He was on that team up there. Just good, just awesome opportunity to go do that. After 5 years up there, I was fortunate enough to be offered the head job at Elmhurst College. So I took the head job at Elmhurst College, was there for 5 years. And then when that ended, I was kind of in a, what do I want to do? And I kind of, college is tough, right? I mean, it's a lot of time away from home. It's a lot of, a lot of time that you're not with your family. I've got 2 young kids. I had some opportunities to stay in the college level, but really thought, I think it'd be time for me to transition into high school, use that teaching degree that I got, that I never actually put to use. And I've been fortunate enough to end up here at Lake Zurich. So it's been good.
Yeah, that's a powerhouse up there, isn't it? Lake Zurich, haven't they always been good? I'm not from Central Illinois, so I'm trying to figure out who's who.
Right. No, Lake Zurich's got a really rich tradition. Started with Mike DiMatteo back in the early 2000s, and really got things going. And it went from him, Coach Storts, Coach Profit, Coach Mertens, who I replaced, took him to the state championship game in 2017. Mm-hmm. And it's a great football town. They care about football. They love football. You don't find a lot of public schools like Lake Zurich anymore that truly love football. I mean, our stands are packed. We've got currently 150 kids in the program, which is down from what it usually is. But if you ask all the other schools around, how are you doing? And we say, well, we got 150 from freshman through senior. They're like, those are pretty good numbers. So we're doing well up here.
Must be nice to have 150 kids come out for football.
Yeah.
So what was the big adjustment going from being a head college coach? Now you're a head high school coach. Was there a big transition or, any struggles or anything like that?
From a football standpoint, I'm lucky. The coaches here are football guys. They're into it. They love it. They want to be football coaches. The players are into it. They love it. They love to be coached. They love to be challenged. They love to be pushed. So the football transition has been easy. I just coach the way I've always coached, and do the best I can there. Not having meetings has been different. You don't have the time to meet like you do at college. So things that you're like, I can fix in a meeting, you don't have that meeting to fix that. So you got to be really on top of stuff on the field and correcting that during practice as much as possible. Outside of the football department, the weirdest thing, and what I've always said is that the biggest difference is going from a culture where everybody's uber competitive, right? If you're in an athletic department at a university, that place is just pure competition, whether it's the basketball coaches, the soccer coach. I mean, everybody's competing. You're always recruiting. You're always competing against another team, competing against other things. And, you're just driving that competition. High school settings aren't that competitive naturally, right? You get into a physical education class. You got some kids that love it. You got some kids that hate it. It's not an ultimate competitive environment. So not always having to, or be in a situation where you're competing 24/7. That was my biggest adjustment. I didn't know any different. I didn't know that that's not how life worked. I've always been in a competitive environment, right? You go right from college into coaching college. I mean, you're competing, and you're always competing, and that's what matters the most. It's not necessarily the normal high school environment. From a football side, competition's there, everything's what you want. From the teaching side, you don't always have those competitive people around you. That was the biggest adjustment for me.
Yeah, I've talked to other people that have gone from. There's a coach who's a head coach at Milliken, and now he's the head coach at Mount Zion, Coach Etherton.
Yep.
I
No,
coached.
well. Yep.
I coached against him when I was at Charleston, and I asked him that. His thing was, I said, "Well, what's it like coming to a high school?" And he goes, "Less stress. He doesn't have to worry about as much, and it's just football. Like he can just be like, what was the word? Free flowing a little bit."
Yeah, he's 100% right. And he was at Milliken when I was at Elmhurst. We had 2 years, I think, of overlap down there. And that's the other adjustment is, what do I do with all this time?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we don't have meetings, we don't have that stuff. Or the amount of meetings that we've had. We also don't have recruiting. So I'm not on the phone trying to talk an 18-year-old into paying $50,000 to go to Elmhurst College. I'm not driving all over or flying all over the country to find people to come. I'm just showing up, coaching the guys that really want to be there and care about their town and their community. And then when that's over, I get to go home. That's been different. That's a good difference compared to being at the college level.
Well, he started coaching track, so I think that's what he was doing. He was like, I have to do something else. So he started coaching track too. So I coach football and track. So I saw him in football and I saw him in track. And he was like, "You're just doing this." So what I always ask Division III coaches this. What's a misconception about Division III football? Because I have a little small story. When I was at Charleston, you had those kids that were like Division I or bust all the time because
Yeah.
it's on TV. And it was their senior year, and I said, "No offense." I finally snapped. "No offense. If they haven't contacted you yet, it's not going to happen.
Sure.
Look at Division IIs, look at Division IIIs." And I tried to explain to them Division IIIs have good football, and some programs have JV levels where they can play JV, move on up. So what's a misconception about Division III football? It's good football.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that there's not good players, right? I mean, you've had some really phenomenal football players at that level. You got guys that are fast, big, physical. They just may not check all the boxes for a scholarship, right? I might be a 5'11", 250-pound road grading center, right? Well, a 5'11", 250-pound road grading center is not going to get many scholarship opportunities, but they can still go be dominant football players. I think that's the biggest misconception. Now, one thing I have noticed, coming to high school, that I didn't realize when I was at Elmhurst or even at Minnesota State, or which is Division II school, I didn't realize how big of a deal high school football had kind of become. And what I mean by that is the promotion and the pomp and all that stuff that goes into a game day at high school has changed significantly from back when I played, and even before we had huddle and we'd have to go watch games and do live scouting stuff. There wasn't one home game here at Lake Zurich that was not just off the chain excitement from a student section, from fans, from just an environment. And we might have homecoming at Elmhurst that hit that kind of excitement. And so I can understand where, Division III gets a little bit of that. Well, why do I want to go there? I just got done playing in front of 5,000 fans, and now I'm going to go play in front of 1,000, right? So I think that's a little bit of it, but it also goes to, I don't think kids love football for football as much as they used to. I think they love the attention they get from being on the football team. I think they love their ability to promote, and the kids here at Lake Zurich are awesome. If we tell them to lift weights, they lift weights. If we tell them to sprint, they sprint. They will do everything to make them the best football players they can. but a lot of them don't want to go beyond that. There's a lot of football players from last year's class that I really thought could go be great Division II, Division III football players and have the time of their life like I had playing, Division III football. But they're not going to find a better environment than what they had here at most places. They're going to have to go to some special Division IIIs, your Whitewaters, Mountain Unions, North Centrals, places that, and even North Central doesn't get the fanfare for as good as they are. They should have way more fans than what they get. They're not going to find that. You have to truly love football for what happens between the lines and not care about what happens outside of that to go be a Division II, Division III football player. And I'd even argue if you're going to go to Ball State, if you're going to go to Eastern Illinois, if you're going to go to, one of those types of schools, they're not going to pack the house like Penn State and Ohio State does either. So you gotta love football. And I don't know if that love of the game is as rich as it used to be.
Yeah. When I coached at Charleston, we would play Mattoon, which, is right down the road, about 15 minutes. And it was just called the Coles County Clash. And so we would play in Eastern Stadium. It was really cool. There was more fans at that game than an Eastern Illinois game on a Saturday. It was packed, like no seats left on that one side of their stadium. And if you coach on that side and you're losing, you don't want to turn around and see what's being said to you. Like you could just feel it. And it's just, they're right behind us and there's 10,000 people. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's high school.
Right. And that's the thing that's really changed, I think. And it's made it hard. It was hard. It was hard at Elmhurst to talk a lot of those good players into coming and taking a chance and doing it for the love of the game. And I don't think I'd ever go back to college coaching at any level. I mean, just the amount of transfers, right? I mean, just look at your Twitter feed or your ESPN bottom line, how many kids are transferring from this school to that school. And this has happened at, Florida State and Notre Dame and everywhere, right? You put all this time into getting there and trying to build something only to have, guys kind of leave on you. It's hard. It's so much work. And everything has to fall right in line. And if it doesn't, you got a bad season. And you got a bad season, you might have a job. And those kind of things all happen. And a lot of it's beyond your control. What's awesome about being here at Lake Zurich is, or at the high school level in general, is you've got kids that are going to be there. You kind of have an idea what's going on. You're not too worried about transfers. You develop, you coach, you help them grow. I mean, and that's why we all get into coaching anyways, whether it's at college or anything. I would think most people aren't doing it for an ego purpose. They're doing it because they want to help kids be the best they can be and grow and turn into great young men and be awesome husbands and fathers and do those things in the future. And, it's hard to do that when you're not getting to coach kids for 4 years. And there's not too many kids that make it through 4 years at college anymore. Whether transferring out, not playing anymore, those kinds of things. High school, at least you got an opportunity to impact some lives.
Yeah, you kind of answered one of my questions. I was like, would you ever go back to college? And you kind of answered that, like if that was ever an option to go back to coach college, because, some do that. They leave for a little bit, then they go back. Like something draws them back to doing it. And
I think, you never know what the future holds. And I don't think anybody can ever talk in absolutes, but I can't imagine knowing now what I know of how I can still do what I love to do, which is coach football, impact people's lives without sacrificing my family like I had up until this past year. I don't know what would draw me to get away from that. I mean, it's definitely not money. I mean, nobody gets into it for money, and I don't really care if people know who I am or know my name, nationally. So I'm not in it for ego. I really just love coaching. I love watching those aha moments happen. And, I'm having that. I'm getting that here. And I feel like I'm at one of the best public schools in the state when it comes to football support. And, I'm we were talking before we started, I'm humbled and honored to be able to still do what I love to do and get paid to do it at a place that cares as much as I do.
That's the dream, isn't it? That's got to be the dream.
Yeah, I think
um,
so. You know,
it's the dream to me. I don't know about anybody else, but that. See, I'm off topic a little bit, but yeah, that's the dream to coach football, love it, and be at a place that supports it and has a good athletic program, and don't worry about anything. And uh, I mean,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, are we perfect? Absolutely not. Do we have our own issues? Absolutely, everybody does. But the bottom line is, you know, we've got kids here that pour their heart into it, and they're giving all they've got, and you're giving all you got. You're gonna have success. Whether it's wins and losses, I don't know, but you're gonna have success. You're gonna put out great kids. You're gonna make your community proud. You're gonna do all those things. The winning it should be a byproduct of doing things right.
absolutely. Because I'm at Addison where we're trying to rebuild that program, and a horrible time to rebuild it during COVID. Coach Bazantz's first year, and I always ask him, "Aren't you glad you took this job?" He took it in February, so who knew this was going to happen? I always ask him, "Aren't you glad?" And I can't say what he said. I can't repeat what he said.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a challenge. It's a challenge right now. I mean, I took over for Coach Mertens. Coach Mertens had a great thing going. Last year, senior class here at Lake Zurich was just phenomenal. I mean, we've got two kids at Northwestern off that class right now. We've got another kid playing Division II football in Indianapolis. We had a bunch more that could have gone and played other places and just chose not to. We had great talent. That made the transition pretty good. This year was going to be, how do we get better? How do we grow? How do we continue to implement the culture and the things that we want? And it's just all been, it's all been gone. We've had a total. We had one practice in the summer. We got one practice in the summer, which we got to do basically agilities. We didn't even have a football out there. And then we got shut down. And then we got in 14 contact out of the 20 contact days. So we've had 15 total practices since the season ended last year. So, we've done a lot of stuff on Zoom, done a lot of stuff that way. We've luckily had some hybrid stuff going on here with our district. So I've gotten face to face with kids. I've got some in weight training that we get to work with a little bit, but that's about to end too. So, we're kind of we're doing the best we can to hang on and hoping to get to a season.
Yeah, we got 2.5 weeks this summer, and it was no football, no helmet. It was body weight. Um, and then we had some of our contact days, and then like the last week and a half, they said, "Nope, the numbers went up. You're done."
Yeah.
And they never. It was funny. It was funny. It was on a Friday. They said stop. So the next week we were waiting, and I said, "Hey, did they say yes or no?" Or did they say no? And he goes, "Well, they haven't said yes, but they also haven't said no." And I said, "So let's go and ask for forgiveness later." Like, let's just go out there. But that didn't go very well. It's
Yeah.
especially for me. I don't know these kids. It's my first year. I don't have a chance to do this, but Zoom's been a blessing for that.
Yeah.
I think that's the new normal is these virtual meetings. You're going to see more virtual coaches meetings, I think, more than ever.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's really made me think is, do we need to meet as long as we meet on the weekends? Do we need to do the late Monday nights? That we did to prepare for games last year. I know at the college level, I mean, we were 7 days a week. So what we cut down to here for me, it was like, what? Yeah, you mean there's actual football games on I can watch? I mean, I watched the NFL, I watched college, I watched all kinds of stuff that I hadn't seen in 20 years. I coached college football for 20 years. I didn't see any of that stuff. Catch maybe a late night Saturday game, depending on when your game was. Catch maybe the Thursday night football game, if your wife lets you. Usually that was date night. So you had to make sure you had date night going. So we had all this, I have all this free time. And then I'm looking at it going, shoot, with Zoom, we might be able to have even more free time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're one of those programs that comes in Saturday after a game to watch film with the kids, do a little lift, right? And then meet as a staff and kind of talk about what you got to get done over the weekend. And so that was kind of our schedule, right? So we did play Friday night, come in Saturday. Guys would we'd get a little bit of workout in. We would watch film with the players. Then they would go home. Coaches would stay for another hour or two, just kind of getting our stuff in order, watch a little bit of film of the next opponent. Everybody's got their assignment of what they got to break down and go do. And then Sunday we were on our own. And then Monday we'd go out and run through a little bit of stuff that we kind of texted back and forth about, but really just basic, go through all your base plays, offense, defense. You know, if you're playing a team that runs something funky, you might introduce it a little bit on that Monday, but a really short, quick practice. And then Monday night, coaches, we'd order some food and we'd sit down and we kind of grind it out, finish up the game plan, and then hit the week. That's what we did. Looking at it now, I'm going, well, shoot. I think I still might want to bring the kids in Saturday, but I don't have to keep them very long. I want to get the workout in. We don't have to watch film. We could do that virtually, right? We don't have to watch film in person on that. We could do that over Zoom. So then it's like, well, you know, so we got that. And then I said, thinking, well, we don't have to meet as a staff either, because we could do that over Zoom. We could, you know, Zoom in, share screen, watch film, talk about it. Huddles, you know, got the Huddle beta going right now where you can share screens and do that. I don't think you can talk yet, but they're working on basically turning Huddle into Zoom, and they'll eventually do that. So then you can do it straight through Huddle. You won't even need to go the Zoom route. So that just save you some time. But at the end of the day, too, and one of the assistant coaches brought this up. He's like, you know, but there's something about sitting in a room with some cheeseburgers or pizza and, you know, being together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we got to find a balance between that. When we're allowed to be together, cut where you can. Don't do it just to do it, but you still gotta build those bonds, those jokes, those, you know, just going off on tangents, those things that happen.
Yeah, that's what we said. We were like, well, we'll still bring the kids in on Saturday, but if we have to, let's say a coach can't come in on a Sunday for some reason or whatever it was, oh, we can just do Zoom. Like there's a backup now. It's not like, oh, you have to be there.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. We can just do Zoom. What time works for everybody? And I haven't tried the Huddle beta yet. I saw it, but we haven't messed with it yet. But it's crazy because when I started getting into coaching, that was the tail end of trading film. I remember I had to drive to trade film at the tail end. That was in 2009. So even then, like you were trading DVDs, like you had to go, and that's when two-a-days happened. There's no two-a-days anymore. These kids they don't know what that is.
Right. No, I can't remember 2009, 2010. I remember we used to when we would watch recruiting film, right? I mean, you used to have to grind to recruit, right? You were a good recruiter if you grinded, right? So you could go into we had got a quarterback to Minnesota State. His name was John Wolf. He played at Oak Forest High School on the south side there. And phenomenal player, 6'3", 225 pounds. He jumped over a standing DB as a quarterback for us. Just an unbelievable player. He had no offers from anywhere. Okay, he was a little skinnier, but coming out of high school. But that's what he grew to be. He grew to be a 6'3", 225-pound college quarterback that was a finalist for the Division II Heisman, which is the Harlan Hill. Nobody recruited this kid. Why? Because nobody went into Oak Forest. Nobody got his DVD, watched him play wishbone football, and say, "Hey, this kid could be great." But we used to sit in those rooms. I'd walk in with big old boxes full of tapes and DVDs, and we'd sit down, and you have to put a guy up. And if somebody didn't have, a lot of kids didn't have highlight tapes, so if you weren't prepared and knew exactly where the good place for this kid was, he got gonged off the screen and never heard from again. Then he could have been the greatest player ever. Well, then Huddle comes along, and you don't have to grind anymore. You just pop open the video, and you can recruit all across the country. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's been weird to see the transition. So my first year coaching was 2001. You know, so I've seen it kind of go all the way to what it is now. Out of that, and then other people listen to the podcast like, well, I remember when I had to actually splice tape, and when I was a GA, I had a stack of VCRs because everything was on VHS. So in order to make cut ups, you'd have to have a stack of VCRs, and you'd have the wide film and the tight film. And the wide film would go in the top VCR, and the tight film would go in the second VCR. And then you would have 2 more VCRs below that, and you'd hit play, pause, record, play, pause, record, play, pause, record, play, pause, record. And then you would do that. And then if a coach said, I want to see every time they ran counter, you go through the cut-ups, and you'd have to create that again in your stack of VCRs, play, pause, record, and create a VHS cut-up tape. All right, which I would argue is harder than actually splicing the old 8mm tapes that the old guys used to do. At least there you could see where it ended and began, and you didn't have to worry about pressing the right buttons. But all that stuff's now just they sort by this and huddle.
You have nightmares over doing that VCR stuff still from doing that?
I do. There's no VCRs allowed in my house at home at all.
They don't know what a VCR is. My parents still have them somewhere. They don't use them, but it's somewhere, and they don't know what it is. I don't even think they know what boom boxes are. Now that we're getting off topic, they don't even know what that is. They don't know what Walkmans are. They don't know what any of that is.
Yeah.
Like
cords on their headphones. What's that?
I will say this. I love my Bluetooth, but like this has a wire, but like they don't know what that is. They're just like, what does that mean? Like, I don't want the phone without the phone jack. I still need it at some point. I have to use it. See, I told you we get off topic, and this is what happens. I see something shiny. I'm like, let's go down this rabbit hole and do this. And
well, that's what's great about long form stuff, right? You can just talk about what you want to talk about, how you want to talk about it. You're not confined to the typical medium. That's what's awesome about podcasts.
Yeah, and this is free therapy, I call it. I need to start charging people. It's free therapy during this COVID time.
Right.
So you've been around the block a little bit. So what is your coaching philosophy? Like, especially when you came to Lake Zurich, like when you came in, there was a culture, but each coach has their own culture, their own philosophy. So when you came in, what did you say? Like, this is what's going to happen. This is how I do things. This is how we're going to go about it.
Yeah. I think it's typical, like everybody else, you want to teach life through the game, all those kinds of things that everybody talks about. And I don't want to belittle that, because that's why we do what we do. But how you do that is more important than doing it, because in my opinion, there's people who say that, but then don't actually do it. And then there's people who don't say it at all and might find a way to get there anyways. So for me, life is the most unpredictable, unfair thing there is, right? I think we're living absolutely in the middle of that right now. We have no idea what tomorrow is going to be, right? So I'm of the philosophy that I'm going to coach that way, meaning we have structure, we have an order of things, we have practice and all that, but we're going to push the envelope of what they can handle mentally. We're gonna go with a fire hose approach, and it's going to be somewhat sink or swim. And what you'll find is a lot of people are like, that's too much. We're giving them too much right now. How are they going to handle that? Well, what if life gives them too much? How are they going to handle that? I mean, they can't push pause on life, right? Any kid right now that's struggling with the e-learning, remote learning, bouncing in and out of hybrid, they can't reset the button on that video game. It is what it is. So when I came in here and I got hired late May, so I didn't have a chance to teach the staff what we were going to do offensively. Luckily, we have a great tradition of defense here at great tradition of defense here at Lake Zurich, and those guys were able to keep rolling. But offensively, I decided I was going to do that. And I actually been a defensive coach most of my career, but I was going to do the offense, and we went fire hose approach, man. We put in things that we felt like we might need, and just pushed them and pushed them and pushed them. And what I found was after about a week and a half, first week it looked bad. I think it looked really bad. Like guys couldn't line up, guys couldn't get in the 3 points. They were so bad they couldn't remember how to get in the 3-point stance. I mean, that's how confused they were. All right. But after about a week and a half, all of a sudden we could do this and we could do that, and things start rolling. And it just led me to understand that I think we don't understand how pressure can create positive performance, right? So by pressuring guys to do more than they think they can do, by putting their feet to the fire, making them drink out of that fire hose, you're gonna progress much farther than you would normally. So from a coaching philosophy standpoint, is I'm gonna load them up on stuff, and I'm gonna push, and I'm gonna push, especially mentally, not as much physically. They know how to go on. A lot of kids, they can lift weights, they can run, they can do those things. Especially at Lake Zurich. I mean, that's not hard for us. But mentally, I want to challenge them. I want them to be uncomfortable, so that in a game, when all of a sudden they're in a different defense than they were supposed to be, or all of a sudden they're running offensive plays that we didn't practice, they can adapt and adjust because they understand everything conceptually.
Yeah. I think some people are afraid to do that. I think they're afraid to do too much or throw everything by the kitchen sink at kids. They think they need to do this, this, or this. But that's where football is going now. I think is some people are afraid to do that. But you make a good point. Is you can. I'll never forget. I was offense coordinator. We played a team. They were in a 4-man front on the 5 films I had. We get there. They're in a 3-5 all of a sudden, and my kids' eyes went like this. They were just like, "Oh my goodness, what's going on? We game planned for this. Now it's this." As a coach, I knew what to do. I knew I could come over there and talk to them, but they didn't know. They were like, "Oh my goodness, this, or this," and it was because we didn't give them enough to be prepared for, and they panicked and this and that. So I think you need to find that balance of, is it too much or whatever, like you said, like, but they have to know that's what life is. This COVID thing, we're all under pressure. I think this year for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we just keep pushing. I think you've got to push kids. There's too many things in life right now that there's an easy way out, right? You talk about the video game, they can hit reset. I think you got some parents that don't have the accountability. We're kind of, as football coaches, I feel like, and other sports as well, but I'm a football coach, so I'll talk about it from a football perspective. We're one of the last things in society that can still apply pressure, create uncomfortable environments where they have nowhere to hide from them, right? The only way to hide from those environments is to quit, right? Which they obviously can do. But what you'll find is kids need that structure, want that, that they want to be pushed, they want to be challenged. They may think they want it easy, but they really don't. Human nature, we tend to go that way, but your true competitors, your true, kids, they want to be coached, and we used to help support what society was doing for everybody with football, right? They were getting it at home. They were told to, do things right, be accountable at home. They if they had a job, they were held accountable at their job. They were held accountable in the classroom. They were held accountable walking down the street in their hometown, right? And then football just reinforced that. We've kind of shifted a little bit in society now, where football is one of the few things that has the strict requirements of accountability and being on time and being putting a teammate above yourself and doing those things. Sports are kind of the last bastion for that, and I don't want us to lose that. So I want to make sure that we are still instilling those traits into young people. And you could do it physically, right? But kids right now really can handle being challenged mentally, and stress is stress, right? So if you want to run hundreds, you're going to stress the kids out, fine. But if you right, and that's your prerogative. I don't think they need the physical stress. I think the mental stress is just as can help build that resilience, that accountability, and proof that they can overcome adversity just as much as physical stress can.
Yeah, and I think that's why sports matter. Like, I was thinking about that before. I think that's what sports are a really good thing. Education's a really good thing to try to do that, because life's not going to be fair, um, and all that stuff. So it's that coaches can do that, but without it right now, it's gonna. I'm scared what these kids are going to be like without that stuff going on right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you said you went to offense. So are you the offensive coordinator there at Lake Zurich too, or are you just the
Yeah,
CEO?
yeah. So I call plays on offense and kind of handle that end of.
So from being a defense for so long, how did that help you maybe go about going on offense?
Well, I obviously have a pretty good perspective of what teams are trying to do and how they're lining up and what conflicts are created based on coverages and fronts and different things that they do. Um, my 5 years at Elmhurst, I was basically like the CEO. I had an offensive coordinator, I had a defensive coordinator, so I helped game plan both sides of the ball, and brought my perspective either way. I brought to the defensive staff. I brought my experience running defenses, doing different things, different offenses we had seen. Because when I had come from at Minnesota State, we were seeing it's like anything, right? Division One does this, Division Two does this, Division Three does this. Eventually, it all gets down there to high school, right? So when I took the job at Elmhurst, the RPO stuff, some of the zone read, all that stuff was really starting to become everything
Hmm.
that it is now. But we had seen a lot of that stuff at Minnesota State, so I was able to give that perspective to our defense. Say, well, here's how we defended it. Here's certain things you can do, and help there. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I was able to say, like, well, I understand you want to line up in this formation and shift to this formation, but I'm telling you right now, from a defensive perspective, that doesn't change any of my rules. But if you lined up in this formation and shifted to this formation or motion here, now I gotta flip this and flip that, and so those kind of things where I was able to do. So coming here and doing the offense, I've kind of taken all that learning and knowledge and said, okay, what did I not like to defend? Well, I didn't like to defend this, and or this play's only hard if you have this play as a complement. Those kinds of things that we've tried to build our offense around here at Lake Zurich.
So I know you. I gotta wrap this up shortly because I know you got important parent teacher conferences for PE to do.
Yeah, we got those coming up here.
Um, so what do you guys do defensively and offensively up at Lake Zurich since you've shown up?
Yeah, so defense, they've been a stacked defense for a while. So we're continuing to do that. I actually was a stacked defensive coordinator when I was at Manchester. That was back when it was basically Manchester, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Georgia Military Academy. Those were the people who were kind of running the stack back then in the early 2000s. So I had experience with that. We were a hybrid stack at Elmhurst, as well. So I was pretty comfortable coming here, and they were a stack, and they've been a stack for a while. And everybody runs a stack a little bit differently, but they're a stack defense, so that stayed pretty true. We've adjusted a couple things, but mostly that's the defense it's always been. And then offensively, we're an 11 personnel zone team. Power spread. I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, we get into a lot of 11 personnel sets. Your 3x1 we use our tight ends as wings, so off the ball H back type players, and we run zone, and we run counter, and we throw 3-step and throw some play action and do some of that stuff.
Sounds like a work. I'm the run game coordinator, so that's what we're going to do. I said H backs and wings, H backs and wings, so we can start doing other stuff. Um, so who do you look at when you're doing offense? Like, who coaches do you research or reach out to when you want to implement? Like, I love air raid concepts. Don't get me started. I love looking at that
Sure.
stuff, but I love Auburn stuff too. And you're looking at the run game, if that makes sense, trying to
Yeah.
incorporate it all together.
I listen to I'll learn anything from anybody. I mean, I don't know all the answers, and the answers I do know might not be right. So I'll learn from anybody and anybody. This offseason, I wasn't really happy with last year. I didn't really care for our passing game. Stumbled on Coach Mackey on YouTube. He does some great stuff. Just listening to it now. Do I want to run all that stuff? No. Do I want to call it the same things that he calls it? No. But there's some things in there that fit what we do, and we can adjust a little bit and do that. So I found him, which then he led me to other people like if you haven't saw his YouTube video where he's talking with Noel Mazzoni, he does 2 of them.
Mhm.
Him with Noel Mazzoni was just awesome. And there's a lot of stuff that we can't do. We just doesn't fit us. But just watching it and learning just football, that was really good. Those were two really good videos. I saw one of them live. It was during the pandemic, just happened to be messing around and think my kids were doing e-learning, and I didn't have a class and came across that, and that was really awesome. So, I went through that, I went to the Glazer clinics this year. Always good stuff there. Tons of things to be shared. It's just everywhere, sitting in the lot and talking with guys. I have plenty of contacts still in college. A lot of my coaching friends are still college football coaches. I have more probably college contacts than I have high school. So I reach out to them with questions. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something.
Yeah, I've been watching Coach Mackey's videos for a while, and I had him on the podcast too. He and I have talked way before, and then I started the podcast. I got him on finally. Great stuff on there. It's very simple. And that one you were talking about, you watched live. I was watching it live too. I think I was sitting there watching it. I get in trouble at school. He does the Facebook Live stuff, and I'm at school like, I'm going to watch this, and hopefully nobody walks by.
All right.
And then the summer, another good guy to look at was Coach Dearman at Kansas. He has some. I know Kansas is struggling, but his offense is. He was averaging 50 points a game at Bethel, I think. He was.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, some guys know how to coach. Guys know what to do, and just because they're a 1A high school team or an 0-10 FBS team doesn't mean they don't have good stuff. Doesn't mean they have good schemes. They just might not have the guys to execute it, or like I said, like we talked about earlier, there's some things you just can't control, and it just doesn't go. So yeah, you could find something from everywhere. Twitter's awesome. I must DM myself 2 to 3 things from Twitter every day. And I couldn't even tell you who I follow. I just somebody, I might be following someone who retweets it or says, hey, look at this cool way to run counter. And I'm like, that is a really cool way to run counter. I don't know what to call it in my system, but I'm going to send it to myself and I'm going to watch that thing and come back to it. And I just try and build a library of stuff, that just learn. I love football. So anything I can collect, I try and collect it.
Yeah. Twitter can be very good or very dangerous. You could get too much. You can almost be overloaded. Like, oh, look at this. Look at this. Oh, look at this. And then it's like, oh, my battery died. I've been on my phone too long.
Right.
But it's also a great. I would never have got you on here if I didn't have Twitter. I was not I just reached out and all that. So it could be really good. And so that's all I have for you, Coach. But I really appreciate you. Like, Twitter was just a great thing to do this. Like, I appreciate you spending your time doing this.
No, I love talking about the game. I love talking about how can we, help our kids, and I appreciate you doing this. I've listened to a few episodes, and it's awesome. It's good. Us sharing, it's probably the one last sports that shares too. Football coaches share. It's never been one of those things where everybody hides everything, but we all want what's best for our kids. So I appreciate you doing this. Thanks for having me on. Keep fighting the good fight. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, I appreciate it. This is just a seat of my pants podcast. It was just, I originally wanted to do it to be like an ESPN thing. And then COVID happened, no sports. And then I said, let's talk to some coaches. We need some therapy. So let's just go. And and this is my last rant. It gives coaches platforms, I think. Like, I never thought I would do this. Other coaches probably never thought they would talk on a podcast. So some coaches I've had are like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. And I'm like, I'm helping them get their voice out, even if it's just talking about themselves. It's their voice that's getting out. And so that's why I've upgraded the microphone and stuff to help people out. I'm like, hey, let's just keep going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's good stuff. Well, hopefully when we get a chance to interact and stuff, we get to cross paths. We can sit down, talk some X's and O's and do some of that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing this. Anybody out there that's listening, thank you so much. Stay safe so we can get back to normal and get a life back. And I'll see you guys next time.